Opa to the ball. Welcome again to Portuguese Online. I am your host, Joe Lyon. Today we're going to be talking about syllables, or where to put the stresses in Portuguese words. And while Portuguese is considered a more difficult language than English, this is actually a pretty straightforward thing. So for those of you who don't know, syllables are basically the single sounds that you have in a word. So let's say bed. Bed. It is only one beat. If you have fire extinguisher, then you have fire extinguisher. 6. And if you think about it, you have the word fire. Now, it is not fire. That's just weird. If you went up to someone and say, hey, look, there's a fire, no one will know what you're talking about. Instead of putting the stress on the you have the stress on the fi. So if you come up to someone and say, there's a fire, then people will actually understand what you're saying. Now, English is horrendous when it comes to where to put the stresses in words. Portuguese, however, is actually pretty straightforward. So the most general rule, and the one that overcompasses the majority of Portuguese, is the second to last rule. And what that means is that the stress simply goes on the second to last, or the penultimate syllable in the word. So let's use one of the words that we learned last time. For instance, dog, which is cachorro. Now, cachorro, if we use the little clapping system, cachorro, that is 3 syllables or 3 beats. Now, if we use this rule, the second to last one, that means that we count back 2, and that middle one is the one that gets the stress. Cachorro. You don't say cachorro or cachorro, you say cachorro. Now, this is the same for words that have more syllables than 3. For instance, joy, which is alegria, that has 4 syllables, but still the stress is on the second to the last or penultimate syllable. Well, that seems simple. I mean, every single word in the Portuguese language, you just choose the second to last syllable, and that's the one you stress, and there you go, you're fluent in the language of Portuguese. Except it's not that simple. There is actually an abbreviation that they use in Portuguese called luzir. Now, what's the deal with this luzir? Well, these 5 letters right here, L-U-Z-I-R, are very stubborn letters. If ever you see these letters at the end of a word in Portuguese, the last syllable gets the stress. So for instance, in Portuguese, principal is principal. Now L is found in luzir, and it is found at the end of this word. So therefore, the last syllable, pal, gets the stress instead of the second to last one. So it's not principal, it's principal. Now, so far we've talked about the second to the last syllable and also the last syllable when you have luzir. There is another one that cancels out those other 2's, and those are the diphthongs. Whenever you have a diphthong, usually the stress goes on the syllable that the diphthong is included. So even though lição doesn't have a luzir in the end, therefore it should be in the second to last syllable, because there is a diphthong, that's where the stress goes. So now knowing all of those rules, there is still one more rule that can cancel out all of those, and that is the rule of accents. Now there's a couple of accents in the Portuguese language. I'm going to name 4 specifically. You don't need to know the names, I'm just going to say them so you know which one is which. I'm also going to be drawing them above the letter O just to make it more clear. The first one is what's called an acute accent. Isn't that just adorable? The second one is a lot like it. It just goes the other way, and it's called a grave. The third one, informally, is called a caret, but formally it is called a circumflex. And of course the fourth and last one is what's called a tilde, and you've actually already seen it before. It's the one with the little crazy curly thing on top. Now when you see a word with one of these accents in them, the letter where the accent is in gets the stress. So let's show an example here. Let's say we get a word such as pássaro, which means bird. Now in the word pássaro, the accent is an acute accent and it goes over the first A. And because of this, the stress in the word is where the accent is. So instead of passaro, like it would be originally, is pássaro. Well, here's an interesting example. So we have benção right here, which means blessing. Now, the E in benção has a circumflex. Now we have a tilde right here. However, that tilde is part of this that we talked about. It's a diphthong and is included within a diphthong. So that actually doesn't get the stress. The accent here is the E with the circumflex. We have an accent here and a diphthong here, and the accent always wins. So instead of benção, you get benção. Okay, that seemed a little bit complicated, so let me simplify it a little bit. When you're reading and pass a word and you want to know where the stress is, just look at first if there is an accent that is not part of a diphthong. So if the word doesn't have an accent, go to step number 2, which is look for a diphthong. If the word has a diphthong, the syllable which the diphthong is in gets the stress. If it doesn't have a diphthong, then you go to step number 3, which is look at the last letter of the word. If the last letter of the word is in luzir, L-U-Z-I-R, then the last syllable of the word gets the stress. And if the word you're trying to read doesn't have an accent or a diphthong or has the last letter in the word luzir, then you simply go to the 4th step, which is put the stress on the second to last syllable. I hope I didn't complicate things to you, and I hope you're not too scared about stresses. They're actually pretty simple things when you practice them. Eventually, after all this practice, you should get it. Now, before we leave and before you watch the next video, we have 5 more words for you. Now, the next video, it's going to be really exciting because we're going to talk about pronouns. And to start things out, we're going to learn a couple of the verbs. And these verbs are actually going to be the AR verbs, and you're going to learn more about that in the videos to come. The 5 words are to speak, which is falar, to help, which is ajudar, to use, which is usar, to need, which is precisar, and to walk, which is andar. So again, falar, ajudar, usar, precisar, andar. Memorize those and what they mean. Also the actions that go to them, that would be great. And doing that, you will be all set for the next 2 videos to come. So again, from Portuguese Online, my name is Joe Lyon, wishing you a good day and good luck with your Portuguese.